There's a man on 3rd and Hollow who sells regrets, like other men sell cigarettes. That's what the woman said. I met her in a diner at 3:13 in the morning, the kind of place with cracked vinyl booths, sticky menus, and coffee that tastes like burnt hopes. She sat across from me at the counter, nurse uniform, smudged eyeliner, eyes that looked like they hadn't seen sleep in a week. She told me about him between sips of cold coffee, said she had given away the sound of her mother's last breath. And now, she could sleep again. First regrets free, she whispered, like it was a sacred rule. But it's never just one, is it? I didn't ask questions. I didn't believe her either. But 3 nights later, I found myself standing in that alley. It wasn't on any map. Not even Google could find it. It just appeared. It was narrow, carved between 2 buildings that didn't belong next to each other. Red brick on one side, concrete on the other. The kind of crack in the city you never notice unless you're looking for an escape. And in the middle of it, beneath the flicker of a dying gas lamp, sat the stall, wooden, old, crooked like it had grown from the alley itself. No name, no lights, just the soft glowing pulse of the bottles. They didn't look like ordinary bottles. Some were shaped like tears, others like tiny hands. One looked like a heart split in 2, and every one of them glowed, just enough to light your memories, not the street. Behind the stall stood a man, not tall, not short, not old, not young. The kind of man your mind forgets as soon as you look away. He wore a navy coat with silver embroidery, faded from rain, and he polished one of the vials with a cloth the color of dried blood. He didn't say a word. Not until the woman in front of me stepped forward. She looked like she was made of glass, hair wet from the rain, hands shaking like leaves in a storm. She handed him something, a page torn from a diary maybe, or a photograph. I couldn't tell. He nodded, took it, placed it beneath a tear-shaped vial. And just like that, it glowed. She gasped, staggered back a step, then smiled. A real smile, like something unclenched inside her chest. And she walked away, lighter than air. That's when he looked at me. No greeting, no invitation, just waiting. And I realized I'd come empty-handed, but not empty-hearted. I had no object to trade, but I carried 100 little griefs, some with names, some without. I opened my mouth, but nothing came out. He tilted his head slightly, then slowly placed a small, clear vial in front of me. It was empty, but it pulsed, softly, like a heartbeat. "You don't need to give it all," he said at last. "Just the one that's heaviest." And I knew which one it was. The thing I never talked about. The one that lived in the spaces between my sentences. Not for the vial, but for the memory, the regret. And the man, he just nodded, like he'd seen it 1,000 times. As if pain was currency, and forgetting was freedom. He said I could give him one regret, just one, and I'd never feel its weight again. The next night, I came back. The alley felt different this time, like it knew me, like the shadows parted for me now, like I had already been changed by the very act of returning. I brought something with me this time. A hospital bracelet, white, plastic, still intact after all these years. It had my sister's name on it, Rachel. She was 27. She called me Storm because I cried during thunderstorms and wore grey even when the sun was out. She asked me once, just once, not to leave her side, and I left anyway. I told myself I couldn't bear it, that watching her fade would kill me faster than her cancer ever could. So I ran. I told her I'd be back, and I never was. She died without me, and that bracelet was the only thing I kept. I handed it to the man with the crooked stall. He didn't look at it, didn't ask questions, just placed it beneath a small violet vial, the shape of a curled hand. The vial shimmered, once, then sealed with a faint click. And suddenly, the knot in my chest, the one I'd carried for 10 years, unwound. I stood straighter. My shoulders didn't feel like iron anymore. I walked back into the night like a woman forgiven. But forgiveness isn't the same as forgetting. And forgetting isn't clean. It was the strangest thing. I knew she had laughed. I knew it was warm and stupid and made me laugh too. But the sound, the texture, gone. Then more followed. The freckle beneath her eye. The way she'd hum when she chopped onions. The exact shade of green her eyes turned when she was tired. I rushed to her photos, looked for video clips, played old voicemails. But they felt thin, like paper dolls, like shadows of someone I used to love. I went back to the alley. Same lamp, same mist, same man behind the table. I told him I only wanted to lose the pain, not her. He looked at me, not with cruelty, not with pity,
but with quiet certainty.
Regret and memory are threads,
He said.
Pull one, sometimes the whole cloth unravels. I asked if I could take it back. He shook his head. You didn't give it to me.
He said.
You gave it to the forgetting. That night, I lay in bed and tried to conjure her face in the dark. Not the photo version, the real one, the messy one, the one that squinted when she laughed too hard. And I couldn't. For the first time in years, I slept without guilt, but also without dreams. And I missed the weight I thought I wanted to lose. I went back the next night and the next until I forgot why I was sad to begin with. Once you trade away one sorrow, the silence it leaves is addicting. I told myself I was just clearing space, that I was making room to breathe. But the truth? I started to crave the numbness. That's when I brought the photograph. It was one of those old photo booth strips, me and Aaron, summer, sweaty palms, sticky soda, a crooked grin. We were 17, and in love in that terrifying all-or-nothing way. He had said he'd wait for me. I told him I'd write every day, but I didn't, and he didn't. And when he sent that final letter, the one I never opened, I burned it. That was the regret I handed over. The man took the photo, turned it slowly in his gloved fingers, and placed it into a flat glass jar shaped like a window pane. The glow was softer this time, flickering like candlelight about to go out. And then it sealed. I felt clean, lighter. I smiled the whole walk home. But that night, when I opened my journal to write about Aaron, his name was gone from my memory, like someone had erased it with a trembling hand. I remembered the feel of his arms, the sound of his laugh, but not him. That scared me, but not enough to stop. Next came the box of old notes. Torn apologies, late-night emails, the voicemail I saved from the day Dad left. Each one felt heavier than the last. And each one the man took without question. My sessions became a ritual. I'd walk to the alley, offer another wound, watch the vial glow, and return home with just a little less ache. But soon, I stopped laughing. Not because I was sad, but because I didn't remember what used to make me laugh. Anna said I didn't sound like me anymore. She said my voice had lost its edges, that I spoke like someone reading their own life off a teleprompter. She wasn't wrong. I passed mirrors without recognition, smiled without meaning it, and cried less. Not because I healed, but because I no longer remembered why it ever hurt. I had traded away the pain, but also the color, the weight, the texture of being alive. And for the first time, I wondered if I could ever get it back. I finally asked him where they all go, those regrets I gave him, and that's when I learned. They don't vanish, they're passed on. It was raining again when I asked. Not soft rain, but the kind that makes everything feel urgent, confessional. I stood in front of the table, empty-handed, and asked him, where do they go? He didn't speak. Instead, he reached behind the curtain that hung like shadow behind the stall, pulled it aside. And what I saw didn't belong to the world I came from. It looked like a cathedral, or a morgue, or a memory so old it forgot what it was. Endless shelves stretched into the dark, each one lined with vials, dozens, hundreds, glowing faintly like fireflies caught in glass. But it wasn't the vials that made me freeze. It was the people. Men, women, teenagers, children, standing still between the shelves. Not asleep, not dead, just paused. Eyes faintly glowing, like they were each carrying someone else's sorrow. I took a step closer, the air felt thick, sacred, and then I saw her. Anna, my Anna, the one who used to drag me to art shows and sing out of tune in the car. She was standing in aisle 13, barefoot, clutching a jar I recognized, the one that held my guilt over never saying goodbye to my mother. I turned to him, furious, frantic. "She shouldn't be here," I said. "She didn't take it. I gave it away." And the man finally spoke. "Someone must carry what you cast aside," he said. "Memory doesn't disappear, it moves." I shook. Tears came then, fast and sharp. I begged him to take it back, to let me hold it again. He walked slowly to a nearby shelf, retrieved the jar, and handed it to me. It was heavier than I remembered. And the moment my fingers touched the glass, it all came rushing back. My mother's hospital bed, the song I hummed to her, the day she forgot my name and smiled anyway. Anna blinked. She breathed in, like someone surfacing from deep water, and she smiled. Then she was gone. The aisle was empty. I looked around at the others, dozens of souls carrying what wasn't theirs, and I realized I had left pieces of myself inside people who loved me. I begged for them back, every regret, every mistake, and he said some no longer remember who they belong to. I stayed for hours, asking for each one, touching every jar with trembling fingers. And with every memory returned, someone woke up. A girl I ghosted in college, a boy I used to mock to feel bigger, my father, still holding the shame I gave him, though he was long gone. They blinked, breathed, smiled, and vanished. And then there was one left, a child, freckles, a crooked smile, a hoodie that said future astronaut. My breath caught. I didn't recognize him, and yet my body did. He was the son I never had, the one I imagined, the one I never gave myself permission to want. And somehow, he was holding my hope, the hope I'd traded away to feel safe, to feel small, to stay invisible. I knelt, held his face in my hands, and wept. He didn't vanish like the others. He just nodded and faded gently, like mist. The man watched me in silence. "You've returned to yourself," he said. I stepped out of the alley, not weightless, but whole. Because pain, when owned, becomes story, and regret, when faced, becomes a map. I had lived a life of forgetting. Now, I would live a life of remembering.